Hi, I'm Jennifer Richardson, the newest staff member at the Parthenon. I'm the Education and Curatorial Assistant. So since I've been here, I've been doing a lot of research on our collection, and I've been helping research and document and prepare our upcoming exhibit, We Have a Vision, Nashville Women from Centennial to Suffrage. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I can't wait to see what's next. So this is part of our behind the scenes series where you get to ask questions to the various people working at the Parthenon. So for Ask an Art Historian, I guess I ought to start with what art history is because some people aren't familiar with that. Art history is the study of artwork and the artist and how the art fits in with society. So we look at who made it. Sometimes we know because they signed it. Sometimes we know a lot about that artist because of writings or stories that have been passed down. Sometimes we have an idea like it's a monk or it was a painter to the king, even though we don't know exactly who it was. We look at when something was made, maybe a specific year, maybe the era, maybe what influenced it. We look at why something was made. Personal expression in art is still a relatively new thing that artists are getting to do because throughout most of history they were paid to make specific things. So we look at the reason for that. Sometimes art has a purpose in addition to just being something beautiful to look at. We look at what it is, like what material it is. Sometimes how it's made gives us a lot of information on the artist and can fill in the gaps for what we don't know. So I tend to think of art history a lot more as storytelling and discovery, and I think it's a tremendously fun field to work in. So with an art history degree, you can do all kinds of things. You can teach, which is something I did for almost 15 years. I used to bring my students here to the Parthenon, so starting work here is kind of like a coming home in some ways. Usually to teach in colleges you'll need a PhD, so it's a lot of school to go to a lot more school. And sometimes I had students who weren't art history majors who decided they loved the class so much they wanted to study art history. But what I would strongly suggest is if you're good at something and you're already getting skills in that field, continue in that and then continue to study art history on your own because you can work art history into almost anything. There are overlaps with music and math and science and literature and history and religion, and it just goes on and on. Like it truly can connect with about anything. So it can enhance what you're doing and you don't have to, get a PhD to go on studying art history. So some other things you can do besides teaching is you can be an art consultant, and this is good for people who are collecting art and don't know where to start or they need help finding it. It can also be good for investors. So there's that. You could work in a gallery, which connects artists with people who want to buy work. It also helps provide space in the community for people to come and see what's currently being made. Sometimes people think of art as something that happened way back in the past, but of course it's happening now, and what's happening now is just as interesting as the things that happened thousands of years ago too. You could work in an auction house, which is something I did for several years before coming here. That can be a fun, fast-paced environment where you meet lots of interesting people. It certainly keeps you on your toes. You can work in a museum like I am now. There's lots of opportunities in museums. You could work in education, which is something I'm working on. I'm developing programs to help get people interested with what our paintings can say to them. I'm working on programs to help people understand maybe the contextual history of things that they're seeing when they come here. And it's a challenge, but it's one I especially love. You could become a registrar, which you'll be able to meet Monica later, I hope. She's our wonderful registrar here and is in charge of making sure she knows where all the art is at all times, whether it's on display or in storage or out for restoration work, and she documents the condition continually on our artwork. You could be a curator or assist a curator, in coming up with new exhibitions and all of the detail work that goes into that. There's also public relations, where you figure out how to reach out to people who might not come into museums usually and how to lure them in. You could be an art writer. You could be an art director for TVs or movies. There's also a lot of nonprofits that help artists and museums. So there's just endless possibilities in that way. So for questions, because we had some questions that were submitted, one of them is from a longtime docent who's a favorite here at the Parthenon. It says, Jennifer, I was walking through the Cowan collection one afternoon, and I overheard this couple talking about the collection with great familiarity and passion. I struck up a conversation, and lo and behold, they were Mr. Cowan's relatives. They had some great stories about moving some of Mr. Cowan's things from Illinois to Tennessee after his death. The man told me himself that the family member doing the move in a pickup truck actually sold some paintings on the road to help pay for expenses. I immediately got Susan Shockley is the former head curator, or Mark is our current curator, to talk with them. They may remember and have contact information. So my question is, history detective / art historian, is this true? So this was before my time at the Parthenon. But as I said, I was bringing students here on field trips, and I got to know Susan really well. And I remember her bringing this up to me. And my jaw kind of dropped at the idea of somebody throwing these wonderful and very expensive paintings in the back of a truck and like making their way down to Tennessee and selling some of them on the way. So Susan just kind of blew that idea out of the water, because she was like, well, for one, we have really good records that they were shipped directly from the gallery to here. And if you come and look at our Cowan collection, you'll see some of those reproductions displayed on the walls. So you can see the actual paintings and the shipping information for yourself. She also said, where are you going to sell a painting as you travel? Are you going to do it on the side of the highway? Are you going to take it into the gas station and ask people just to give you money for the painting or gas in exchange for the trip? So she just kind of laughingly dismissed it. I also talked to our registrar, Monica, and this was before her time as well. But she contacted the gallery and was assured that yes, they were shipped directly here, not just in some member's truck. And the paintings came here before Mr. Cowan died. It was part of his stipulation that he not be known by name until after his death. So the paintings were definitely here without a named connection to him for quite a while. Now, when I talked to our head curator, Mark Medley, what he told me was this idea was kind of ridiculous, except there is one painting that we did get after his death, and that is a portrait of him, and that perhaps it's possible a family member drove it down here. We don't really know. But what I tend to think is this is a fun story that is probably told among family members. And you know how those stories grow and get exaggerated. And that's what I think it is. Maybe they're remembering some other items that he donated somewhere else. And perhaps they swapped things on the way that were not our wonderful oil paintings. Anyway, so that was one question. Another question we got was from a woman who had visited Athens, and when she was in a jewelry store there, she asked them if they knew about our Parthenon, and they didn't. And she said, is there any way to educate the locals there to be familiar with our replica here? Which I think is a wonderful idea, and I would certainly love to find a way to do that. I know that there have been a good amount of communication shared between people working at the Parthenon in Athens and with our Parthenon here in Nashville, because ours is a complete full-scale reproduction of the original Parthenon. So there's a lot to be discussed. Now, whether we can educate people working in jewelry shops in Athens, I don't know, but I think it would be great to kind of strengthen that partnership a little bit and help them know about us. Because of course, when people come here, we tell them about the original one in Athens too. So Yeah, those are all of our questions. If you have any more, please go ahead and add them below and I'll try to answer them. Thanks again for watching our behind the scenes series. I hope you continue to enjoy it and are able to visit us soon. Make sure that when you come, you check out our social media tip sheet to see if you will still need a mask, because we're currently filming this in June and you definitely need a mask to enter the building. We're also practicing social distancing and lots of precautions for cleaning and keeping the space safe for all of you. So I hope you can join us soon. Thanks.